Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of What in the World is Happening, the show about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. Today's topic is signs of Maitreya's presence in the world. I'm Sabina Qureshi, broadcasting live from Edmonton, Canada, and with me today are Elisa Graf in Germany. Hi, Elisa.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And Adrian Magana in San Diego, USA. Hi, Adrian. I'm glad you're
It's
here.
good to be here.
Yeah. We broadcast live every second and fourth Saturday on Zoom, Facebook Live, YouTube, and right now we're also streaming on Twitch. At the end of each show, we do 30 minutes of transmission meditation. It's a free and it's a potent group meditation for anyone over the age of 12, and we hope you'll stick around and join us. So we're going to dive in right now. If you look at our title slide here right now, you'll see that there are pictures of people demonstrating, but there are also other pictures that show completely different types of things, patterns of light, a crop circle. So we're going to be talking about all of that, and all of these are signs of Maitreya's presence in the world. So we'll begin just by talking a little bit about who is Maitreya. And we like to start just by reminding ourselves that all people, and in fact, all life is divine, according to the Ageless Wisdom teachings. So that means that we're all sharing a divinity. We're all part of something that lives within us, and yet we're all different. Everybody is expressing that in a different and unique way, and everyone's at a different stage in how they're expressing it. And that leads us to talking about the Masters of Wisdom. And who are they? Maitreya is one of the Masters of Wisdom. This is a group of people who, like ourselves, are growing and evolving lifetime after lifetime. They have reached a level at which we would call them perfect. They've perfected themselves. They are pure love. They don't demonstrate any of the, well, you could call them faults or just lack of awareness that we have. And so we also call them Masters of Wisdom because they have mastery over themselves, and they have, excuse me, completed their evolutionary journey on Earth. They don't have to come and be born anymore, but they're here to help us. They are the ones who stick around and say they're going to help us as we move into the same mastery. I mean, it takes time. We're not doing it suddenly or quickly, but it is down the road for all of us. And Elisa, would you like to talk a little bit about who Maitreya is?
Maitreya is the head of the Masters of Wisdom. He embodies the unconditional love of the Christ. He's both a Buddha and a Christ. And he's expected by all the world's major religions, by different names, of course. The Christians are expecting the return of the Christ. The Jews are expecting the return of the Messiah. And the Hindu people are actually expecting the return of the Kalki avatar. And the Buddhists actually have his name right. The Buddhists have known for a long time, since the Buddha Gautama explained that the next Buddha that would come would be named Maitreya. He's going to be the world teacher for the next 2,250 years around. And he awaits an invitation from humanity to come forward and to step into our world, into our everyday world, and to help inspire us to make the changes we need to make in order for us to solve the crises we're facing today.
Really, when we talk about solving those crises, in a way, what we can say is that we are lacking certain things. For example, everybody doesn't have healthy food and clean water. Everyone doesn't have housing. Everyone doesn't have health care. Everybody doesn't have access to education. And we're not taking care of the environment. And those are Maitreya's priorities, all the masters. And in fact, without this as a basis, it's impossible for us to move forward.
That's right. Actually, the United Nations, I don't remember, was it in 1945? The United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, Article 25, states that everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself, of his family, including food, clothing, housing, medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability. So basically, we've known for a long time that these things need to be covered in order for all of humanity to move forward. So we already have something that we can use as the basis for this.
That's right. And it's probably also common sense for most people that if you don't have enough to eat, you can't really focus on anything else.
Right.
They're really basic things. I was just reading today about how with this new variant of the COVID virus that's emerging, the Omicron one, leaders in Africa are saying that this is the direct result of the greed and hoarding on the part of the rich nations of the world with vaccines. Yeah. And
yeah,
so
I think if I may
please
go in, one of Maitreya's priorities is that we as humanity recognize that we are one family, we're all interconnected, and one of the ways to manifest that is through sharing. So now that you're talking about the lack of awareness that humanity has at this point, is really represented in the vaccine, how the rich countries and the pharmaceuticals developed these vaccines and decided not to share them with the world, with a few exceptions, right? I believe that Cuba is more than happy and willing to share their vaccines. They just don't have the means of productions to make them in those large quantities so that they can share them with the world. But the rich nations are gathering most of the vaccines, right? So you're right. The African nations, what we known as the southern countries, right? So the southern hemisphere, also the poor nations, have been able to access these vaccines, right? So Maitreya's priorities is to awaken the love aspect in the hearts of humanity, and one of the ways that we manifest this love is through sharing, right? Sharing is divine, as Maitreya says.
Right. When you share, you recognize that the other is the same as you. You're affirming that fact.
He is your equal. Technically, he's part of you. There is really no separation, right? So as you're sharing, you just manifesting one of the cosmic laws, right? And it's also, as you give, you shall receive, and it's this movement of energy, which is the energy of love per se, right?
Yeah. Well, and this is something that we're seeing it manifesting. And in fact, we're going to talk about that. People power, how people are stepping up and speaking out. They are demonstrating their experience of this connectedness, their experience of sharing something with others that is beyond nationalities, boundaries, race, religion, whatever you might use as a separation. People are experiencing that those separations don't exist. They are facets of who we are. For example, I'm Canadian. I may have a particular viewpoint about the world, but that we share something that goes beyond that. And this is manifested by people stepping up and demanding justice, demanding sharing. So it's very much a sign of Maitreya's presence in the world that this is happening. And these teachers, we mention them every time just to say that there is a source you can go to if you'd like to read more about what we're talking about when we talk about the Masters of Wisdom and Maitreya. And the most recent exponent, Benjamin Creme, was alive until just a few years ago, and his books are available. We also will put up a website with 4 free downloads. You can have access to those immediately if you're interested. All of these teachers spoke about, in their books and writings, the same topic that we're covering today. That is, who are the Masters of Wisdom? What is their relationship to us? Who is Maitreya? And why is this important? Why should we be aware of it?
All of these authors had personal contact with a particular master, sometimes more than one master. We know that Master Kutumi, Master Moria, and Master DK were the source of the information. We don't know who's Benjamin Crane Master is or was. I mean, he's still around the master. We know he's part of the hierarchy, and his name is well known in the esoteric universe, but we don't particularly know his name. In the case of Blavatsky, she personally worked with them in the Himalayas, and Alice Bailey, she wrote a series of books that were telepathically communicated to her. I think it's the same situation with Helena Rorick. She had telepathic communication with her masters. All of this information is easily accessible through the internet. You can Google their names. Alice Bailey's books are all available online. I think the same with the Agni Yoga series that Helena Rorick produced. As you mentioned before, you can find 4 books. I think we will give the information later through the Cherry International Foundation, right, regarding Benjamin Crane's books. And I think you can also find Blavatsky's works online. If not all of it, most of her works are available online. She was a prolific writer, so she has a lot of things that you can discover if you are curious.
And Adriana, how did you come to this? Like, why are you interested in this? Why are you here today telling this story with us?
I just love it. I mean, I think that's the basic answer, right? Why I love it, I really don't know, right? But
Okay.
at a certain age, I guess it's karma, right? It's my karmic mission to study this. And part of the process that we were talking about earlier of sharing, I also find it interesting that once I get a certain information, I love to share it with those who don't know it. Right? But how I came to this, I was curious, right? And eventually you find this information that seems to resonate and have power, right? The words have power. It's meaningful and it just sounds true, right? There's something about this information that it's hard to give up, and you just want to read and find more, right? So that's my personal interest. And honestly, I cannot stop reading, right? I have to be honest, I don't understand everything I read. In particular, Blavatsky, I find her very hard to read. Bailey, a little easier. Helena Rorick is beautiful. The way she communicates her message is almost poetic. And Benjamin Crane is the easiest. I think that's his gift to humanity, that he was able to take the information of these 3 previous authors and summarize it, synthesize it in a way that is more accessible to the general public. And I recommend those who are new to this information to start with Benjamin Crane. Right? And you can pretty much start and end there if that's all you want.
What about you, Lisa?
Well, I was just going to say, I have, for the same reasons in many respects with Adrian, you're drawn to this. It's like it calls to you. But I think it's also really important to say to everyone who hasn't already had contact with this information, all of these teachers, all of these writers said in their writings, and the masters who wrote through them also said that don't listen to this or read this or accept any of this without checking first to see if it has the ring of truth for you. And I think that that's a really important factor that we all have to keep in mind, that, you know, they're not actually here to sell something. They're not here to tell you something that you should believe. It's actually about, does this ring true for you? And obviously those of us who are really interested in the subject, for us, we found that it does. It resonates with us. And I think what's wonderful is also that the teachings that are presented by all of these authors, they give a worldview and even a cosmic view that makes sense. It puts things into perspective and in relationship with each other. So you have a better understanding of the purpose of life, the meaning of life, the evolution of consciousness, and how it all applies. It's not just lofty ideas, how it applies on a practical level.
That's right. There's a real synthesis. I have to say, one of the things that appealed to me was that it brought together the fact of different religions, because my father comes from a Muslim tradition, my mother from a Christian tradition. Now, that was never a problem in our home, but it's still, at a certain point, as I was growing up, I began to think, okay, well, there's all these religions. Which one's right, or are they all right? And I mean, I intuitively felt they're all right. I mean, how could they not all be correct? You know, it wouldn't make any sense otherwise. But that was one of the things I really liked with the Ageless Wisdom teachings, was that what it said was that all these different paths and ways of approaching our human experience have a value that is, without any doubt, real and necessary and serves a purpose for people who espouse them or who are part of that tradition. But there's no competition. It's not about competition. It's about sharing a common understanding. And that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I wanted to add to complement what Elisa said earlier. It is true that all of these masters and the authors, the spokesperson, said that you have to read this and then don't take it just because we say it, right? Take it within and analyze it and ponder on it to see if it works for you, if it has a ring of truth. There's an image that is lacking there, which is Jairu Krishnamurti, who was also very connected to Maitreya. And Jairu Krishnamurti, you can find a lot of his videos online. He loved to say, don't trust the speaker, right? Don't believe anything I say, right? Take it with you and analyze it and break it apart and see if it has a ring of truth. And that is very important with this information or any other information, right? That you get a hold of, right? It's up to you to decide if there's value in it and if it's truth.
Right. Is that your dog, Adrian?
I was going to ask you. Yes, my dog. He wants to be part of the conversation, but he's not evolved enough. So maybe in the next cycle he'll be joining us.
He's an expression of the divine.
I'm sorry. He's.
Well, maybe you're just you're babysitting today, are you?
I am babysitting. Yes.
Well, and so, Benjamin.
I apologize.
Oh no worries. It's kind of a charming sound to have. I wanted to say Benjamin Creme also reiterates the same idea that we have to use our own powers of discrimination to decide what rings true for us. And that one of the other things that I like about this teaching is that the emphasis is on the fact that the real master at the end of everything is within your own heart. And that's sort of the authority that you really have to listen to, is your own heart, you.
Yeah, and also the fact that this whole process is one of self-realization. So it's essentially, there's nobody that's going to do this work for you. We all have to take it up ourselves. And I think that that's very powerful.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the change that's taking place today. These are quotations from messages that Maitreya gave through Benjamin Creme. And basically what he affirms is that we're in the midst of major change, major upheaval, and that this change is a result of the presence in the world of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, that energy is streaming through all of us, and it is catapulting us, it's galvanizing us, it's having a tremendous impact on us at every level. And so when we look out in the world and we see things happening that haven't happened before, the types of changes that we're seeing now, this is a direct result of the presence of Maitreya in the world.
Well, actually, I was just thinking along those lines, that I think that for me, one of the most important augurs of the time, that Maitreya is stepping into the world really is because we're seeing so much upheaval. And that upheaval portends a tremendous shift in a paradigm. And if you look back, when the Christ was here before, 2,000 years ago, it was also a tumultuous time. So I think that it's really important to remember, even though there are times when even I think it looks pretty bleak outside, that actually it's a positive sign that things are changing, that there is conflict that is resolving itself through our coming to an awareness of the need for the change to happen. But it's not an easy one. So, we have to remember that's part of the process.
And it also coincides with the transition between two great ages, the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. And that's also true for the last time the Christ was here, when Jesus in Nazareth was teaching. That was also a transition of age from the age of Capricorn to the age of, not the age of Capricorn, to Pisces.
Yeah, Aries to Pisces.
Aries, that's right. So we're seeing these changes because it's a very real fact on many, many levels. Astronomically, because of the masters, there's so many reasons for this. And so we wanted to begin by talking about crosses of light, which have been appearing in windows around the world. I know that here locally, near Edmonton, in somebody's house, a cross of light appeared on a window pane in a bathroom. And this cross of light that appeared, it's inside the glass. It's like a hologram. So in fact, we were given that pane of glass, those of us who talk about Maitreya, so that we could show it to people when we go to expos and fairs. And it just looks like a regular pane of glass, but when you hold up a lighter behind it and you turn on, you flick the lighter and you light it up, or you put a light bulb behind it, this is what you see. You see this. And excuse me, if you use a lighter, you can bring it closer to the glass or further away. If you bring it really close, then you'll see the same cross of light will be much smaller because the light source is very close right to the glass. So you can see that it's actually inside the glass, and it's not a fixed thing. It's alive.
Actually, there have been people who've analyzed it, and there is some glass that sort of gives off something like this, but what we're talking about is something different because, for example, there was a church in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's unfortunately, I don't know if it's there anymore, but suddenly the windows, even though they had not been changed, suddenly they started to manifest these giant crosses of light. And the pastor of that church was very open to the fact that this was a miracle. And the people that were going there as well, in many cases, could tell that it was obviously a miracle. I know somebody who visited that church, and it was an incredible experience because, the whole church was lit with these giant crosses of light, and they had just appeared. It wasn't something that actually was there before. So this is something that's very special. It's not just related to what kind of glass is in the window.
There's a real energetic experience associated with it. Benjamin Krem's master has said that these are blessings manifested by Maitreya or the Master Jesus. So very special indeed. The other thing we'll talk about, light blessings, which appear in different shapes. If you look in the magazine Share International, you'll see photos of many, many of these, which really take an astonishing range of form, shape, quality. The two that we're showing right here on the screen right now, I took the photo on the left in Germany, Balduinstein. And when I took the photo, I was actually photographing this stone marker that you can see. And the light blessing was not there. I didn't see it. That appeared in the developed photograph. However, the one on the right from France, from Nîmes, that light shape, that circle of light, actually was visible on the building when Daniel Brice took that photo. And so many people have seen this type of formation on buildings. Here, I think, Elisa, you took this picture, right?
I did, yeah. In September, I was in Denmark, and I just happened across this building that was covered in circles of light. So I took a photograph, and yeah, they're really quite remarkable. They have a very special quality about them. Yeah, many times they're just covering the whole building.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. And here we have some more, also taken by Daniel Brice in Nîmes, France. And you can see they're different shapes. They're not always the same. They're quite amazing. And here are some that I took pictures of. Edmonton, Canada, that was in the winter last year. And the one on the right, Barcelona, that was some years ago. That particular picture, the entire facade of the building was covered with those light forms. And now to crop circles. There's a link right now that has been put in our comments on Facebook. Daniel Patterson of Liberty, North Carolina, captured the image of a UFO while he was doing a Facebook live stream. And he described it as a spiritual experience. So that ties in with what we're going to say about crop circles. I know Adrian visited this crop circle at Boundary Hill. Oh, you're back. Okay.
Yes, I'm back. Yes, this was in 2017. We were in London, and yeah, we decided to see if we could find a crop circle. And so the story, I remember the night before we asked um, the Space Brothers if they could manifest a crop circle, and we were gifted whether if they answer our prayer or they already had planned to create one. I don't know, but we were able to find this crop circle in Battlebury Hill, south of London. So those are my images. I think if you go on the website Crop Circle Connector, you can actually find the aerial views from above of this particular crop circle. That was July 5th, 2017. And we were able to stay there for about 20 minutes. I did not feel the energies while I was in there, but then after that, throughout the rest of the day and the night, I felt very energized, kind of similar to how I feel after I come out of a very good meditation. It's also similar if I drink coffee and I'm in a very good state of mind. There's a similar feeling. That's how I felt for hours after being inside the crop circle. The crop circles are manifestations of the Space Brothers.
Now,
right?
Who are the Space Brothers, Adrian?
They are our neighbors from outside the planet, right? According to the esoteric teachings, every single planet within the solar system has life. And some of these beings from other planets are more evolved than we are. So we could say that they are our elder brothers and sisters. And some of them are very involved in the evolution of our planet. In particular, the ones from Mars and Venus, as far as I understand. And they
those
like
are our closest neighbors too, right?
That is true. That is correct. In particular, Venus is being involved in the evolution of humanity for thousands of years. That is mentioned in the esoteric teachings. So if you're curious about it, you can read Benjamin Crame's books and to find more. And
there's one book in particular, The Gathering of the Forces of Light, which really comments on that.
Yeah, so those are the Space Brothers. And one of the things they do, besides the crosses of light, the light patterns, is the manifestation of crop circles. Most of them happen in southern England, though they do happen all over the world, right? But the vast majority of them happen outside of London. And they use a technology they use their mind to create the crop circles. But they visualize the pattern that they want to manifest. And then they have these machines that will energize the crop itself, and it grows, right? And then it begins to bend, taking the shape that they desire to manifest. They don't do any harm to the plant, right? Usually the plant will grow back, many times yielding 10, 20, 30% more the following year. It contains an energy, as I said earlier. Right? So it's, as far as Benjamin Creme said, I think it's beneficial to stay inside the crop circle for a few minutes. If you stay there for too long, it's actually the opposite. It begins to drain your energy. The crop circles have also a different message. One is beauty. They are very creative and they're beautiful to look at. The other one is that they're using sacred geometry to communicate with us. To those of you who are interested in geometry and mathematics, here's another example. You can try to decipher the meaning behind the particular symbol there. And some of them are actually, they happen because of other events, right? So for example, I remember there was a crop circle that came out right around Maitreya's first TV interview in the United States. And I think there was also another crop circle that came out when the star, the symbol of the star, which is also a group of UFOs, huge UFOs that are outside the planet, and they resemble a star, a crop circle appear to symbolize that. That one that we're looking at is quite beautiful. That does seem to be birds.
Gorgeous. It's really
Yeah.
gorgeous.
So yeah, so that's what the crop circles are, and it's a way for the space brother. It's a gentle way for the space brother to let us know that they are here, that they are gentle, and they wish to help us because they are indeed gathering the forces of light. The space brothers will eventually, when there is open communication between humanity and our fellow brothers and sisters from space, they will release certain information, in particular, how to use the energy of the sun. Right.
Well, yeah, that's right. And Benjamin Creme has said that each crop circle is a vortex. It draws energy in and radiates energy to its surrounding area, and they create a magnetic field around them. And each crop circle is magnetized and occupies a specific place in the lines of magnetic force in the Earth's magnetic field. So something is actually being built, a type of a grid almost, of interrelated energy. And that will be of great benefit to us in the future.
Yeah, hopefully in the near future, yes.
Yeah, the idea is, though, that we have this wonderful potential to have free energy, and yet the problem is that they can't really give it to us until we abandon war and aggression on our planet, because otherwise it would be used for nefarious purposes. So we have to show that we are a peaceful humanity before we can actually benefit from this wonderful energy, which will actually free us from the issues of fossil fuels and the climate and those kinds of problems.
That's right. We have to basically grow up, right?
That's right.
And even though it seems like an impossible thing to achieve, right? The abolition of war. I personally believe that is just around the corner. And in particular, because the younger generations seem to understand the folly of war. There's no reason for war, right? It accomplishes nothing except for making the rich richer, right? And the powerful
destroying
nations,
lives.
right?
Yeah, that's right.
And destroying lives.
I wanted to say one quick other thing about the fact that the Gathering of the Forces of Light is not available as a free download, but there is an interview on Share International's website about the Space Brothers with Benjamin Creme. And I believe that there's also potentially a video on Share International's YouTube page that also is an interview about the Space Brothers with Benjamin Creme.
That's right. And so those are links that we'll give at the end of the show. And also John, who's putting links into the chat, we'll put links there as well, so that you can see any video you like of Benjamin Creme speaking on Share International's YouTube channel. That's great, Elisa. Thanks for that. We want to go now to something called the Sword of Cleavage. And this has to do with the way that these energies that are streaming into our planet and that are affecting all of us. One of the ways in which these energies are affecting us is this stimulation of each of us, and it's like emphasizing or strengthening and amplifying what we are, or the ways in which we are focused. And so if what you're focused in is towards peace, for example, you're going to feel a stronger energy to work for that. If what you're focused in is greed, for example, then you're going to feel a stronger energy for that. So what it actually does is it separates people. It clarifies more and more what each person is about, and also creates a type of separation, because you get people really lining up sort of in different camps almost. And we're seeing that politically very much around the world in terms of the kind of polarization that's manifesting itself when we look at the results of elections, for example, around the world.
Yes, I think we see this polarization pretty much in every single field that humanity manifests, right? Whether if it's politics, religions, science, anything that we have an opinion, right, that can be divided into two, we'll see the polarization. And this has been happening now for years, because this is the effect of Maitreya's presence in the world. It was actually predicted, right? I think we have a quote from the Bible. It's because it's the energy of love, and Maitreya being the embodiment of this energy, the embodiment of love, his presence alone releases this energy, right? And all of us, whether we know it or not, react to this energy, right? It stimulates us, and it stimulates us to be more of who we are at this present time, right? Whether we're seeking a spiritual path, right, then we tend to go in that direction. But if we are mostly materialistic in our perception and our views, then we go in that direction. So in the case of Chile, yes, I wanted to talk about that because Chile just had elections not too long ago, a few days ago, and they are going to go into a runoff because there was not a clear winner. And these two political candidates are completely opposite of each other. One is young and is what we will call the left side of politics, with some socialistic ideas. And the other person is quite the opposite, is what we would call a neoliberal. I think he's a lawyer, and he actually advocates.
He's right wing, in other words.
Correct. Yes, and he actually advocates. He seems to advocate some of the political views that Pinochet brought to Chile. So Chile is an example, a very clear example of what's happening right now in the world. But wherever you look, right, if you pay attention to, like I said, politics or religion or science or education or anything else, you will have two points of views. And instead of, like Elisa was saying, one of the consequences that we're seeing right now, this chaos that we see, is that these opinions seemingly keep moving further and further and further apart. And that's because one is, again, due to Maitreya's presence in the world, but it's also here so that we make a choice. Which way are you going? Are you going to the left? Or are you going to the right? All right? And you have to be very clear and honest in which way you're going. And there's really not a wrong answer. You just have to be who you are, right? That's right. And if you want change, that's who you are. I think this is the perfect time to be around. If you don't want to change, right, and you want to conserve all ideas, which basically are what we will call Piscean ideas, then you stay in that side of your camp, and that's your choice. And it's not necessarily a wrong choice, right? As far as I understand, you'll come back another time, and you have another chance to make a different choice. But this is the choice that you have to make, and we need both sides. Right now, we need both sides, right, to be present and to be active. And we're seeing this with the pandemic. We're seeing it very clearly. I think the pandemic came here to energize this polarization.
Right. It's a way of waking up, isn't it?
It is a way of waking up, yes.
And so we just have a few photos here just about activism. I mean, this is something we're seeing in the news all the time. We don't need to show you pictures, really, because we're hearing about protests all the time, all over the world, taking place on a range of issues. And so this is just a little reminder.
I love that one, especially the no justice, no peace, because that's exactly the message that Maitreya is trying to get us to understand, that without justice, there can be no peace in the world.
Yeah, it's been really wonderful to see that. I'll just go back to that slide. Yeah, to see those signs, how people are connecting the dots and making it clear to the powers that be that this is where we stand. Absolutely essential. That's the only way change comes about. When you read about how we came to have, for example, the types of protections that we now have that we think are absolutely fundamental and basic, for example, an 8-hour working day, sick leave, maternity leave, all types of fundamental conditions which allow society to function and for people to thrive, those came about because people, activists on the ground, pushed for them, fought for them, and really many times sacrificed a lot in order to bring those changes about. Because what we now understand, and this is also a sign of the change that's taking place, is that the level of sophistication that people have, regular people on the ground like me, like you, the ways in which we now understand power and who wields that power, how they wield that power, means that we also understand what we need to do to push those powers into doing what we believe is right. And I just want to briefly say welcome to everybody who's watching and listening from around the world. Thanks for joining us. We're really glad that you're here. because this is global. It's about something that's taking place around the world. There is no place on earth right now where people are not rising up and demanding and reivindicating what is necessary, what they feel is absolutely fundamental. And here we just have a little quote again from Maitreya about individuality, that we've developed our individuality through the past age, the age of Pisces, during the last 2000 or so years, lifetime after lifetime. And now we've reached a stage at which all of us have an individuality that's really highly developed. And it's a great tool. It's a great power. So it's really important how we use it. And Benjamin Creme has said many times that the challenge now is to put that individuality to work for the greater good, for the good of the group. And so when people use that individuality in ways that do not benefit the whole, we really see how impactful it is. And now to youth activists. Probably the most famous youth activist right now, Greta Thunberg. I'm sure all of us have seen this quote before, but we just wanted to put it up because we really like it, about what she says about hope. Hope is not passive. Hope is telling the truth, taking action, and it comes from the people. It's such a really sort of very healthy way to look at things and to understand where the power actually lies.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why there is so much activism right now happening in the world, one is because we need it, right? A lot of people can see that there are many things that need to be changed. And the only way to change this is becoming active, right? Join a group, a society, a community that advocates for something different that, in their view, is better for humanity. But it is also a reaction. It's a consequence of Maitreya's and the Masters' energies. The Masters have been behind many of the changes that have happened, right? Labor changes, human rights. Masters have been behind that, energizing individuals or groups. One of the things about the Age of Aquarius is that the energies are manifested to groups. So that's why we see all these groups coming to life and manifesting themselves. So also, in particular, the younger generation is very active. One, because they can see that if they don't change the world, there is really no future for them. Mm-hmm. Second, a lot of these people incarnated in the world right now are mostly very receptive to Aquarian energies, right? So right?
That's right. If you look at this little boy here, he founded an environmental group when he was 9. So a lot of these are children who are really becoming active very, very young. And you know, this boy, Francisco Vera, he affirms that, you know, all children have the right to express themselves, and that there's no limit, no age limit to being an activist and to taking part in these great changes.
Yeah, and this little boy represents so much of what is going on right now. One is this younger generation, and he just screams, "You're never too young to start mobilizing yourself," right? It's all around him, but also he also manifests this connection that we have not only with our fellow brothers and sisters, humanity, with everything that has to represent the planet, right? The lower kingdoms, right? The animal kingdom and the vegetable kingdom. So reading about him, he decided to become an activist. I think one time he attended a bullfighting show.
That's right. It started with bullfighting at the age of 3, I think. He would attend these protests with his parents.
I think it was 6, but right at the age of 6, I think he was attending a bullfighting thing. And he realized that there's something wrong with this bullfighting thing, right? That our fellow, brothers, in a sense, the animal kingdom, which is part of who we are. Everything in the planet is part of who we are. Again, there is no separation. We're interconnected with all the different kingdoms in nature. So that mobilized him to be outspoken, right? So he is an environmentalist, but he also is trying to tell Colombians. I wasn't aware that bullfighting was a big thing in Colombia. but I guess it is. And he's trying to tell, his fellow Colombians and the rest of the world that we should move away from these barbaric acts, such as bullfighting.
Well, but the death threat he received was from an anonymous Twitter account after he posted a video urging the government to improve internet connectivity for children studying online because of the pandemic. So he's also active in that area, in many areas, in fact. So he's really got his finger in a lot of different pies, if you want to.
Correct. And I wanted to talk about that also as an example of polarization, how here we have an activist and the polar opposite is afraid of him. Right?
That's right.
To the point that they have to have death threats against this. How old is he now? 8?
I think he's 9 or 10 right now.
Okay. So, I mean, just ridiculous that you have to have death threats against a 10-year-old kid that is advocating for good causes, the way I see it. So, again, that's an example of polarization. It's also an example of this energy of love that Maitreya embodies, that makes us be fearless, right? Once you choose your path, a lot of us become fearless, right? And you follow this path to the end.
Well, and here's some more examples. These are slightly older children. And this was an article in Time for Kids. Time magazine did this article. I think it was a year ago or so. And for example, the girl on the left, Anya Sastry, she's the National Outreach Director for the US Youth Climate Strike. So being inspired by Greta Thunberg, who started striking for action on climate change, now there's this youth climate strike across the United States. Anya's the outreach director, and she says, well, being an activist can be a tough job. It's challenging because you're sacrificing so much of yourself, but her advice is support your fellow activists, because having a good activist network and support system will help you. So these are wise words from somebody who's, I think she's 15 or 16. And the boy on the right, Lesane Matenge Mutunke from Kenya, he plants trees. So he's got an initiative called Trees for Goals, because he's also a soccer player. And so he began it in 2018, and he planted 1 tree for every soccer goal he scored. Now he's planting 10 trees for every goal. And fortunately for us, he's very good at soccer. So he's planted more than 200 trees so far, and that was 2 years ago. And he says, I also keep track of the places I plant the trees, so I can make sure the trees are not just planted, but that they're growing and that they continue to thrive. And just, I want to add one more thing that he said, because I think it's really important. He said, any little thing you can do to help, no matter how small, is worth doing, whether it's planting a tree, picking up litter, or even just sharing information on social media. He says, everything counts, as much as you may think it doesn't, but it does count. And he says, you need to know that it counts.
Wow, I mean, that almost sounds like Maitreya speaking there. I think we can find quotes of Maitreya that are very similar.
We hope you enjoyed this excerpt from one of our popular episodes of What in the World is Happening. I'm Elisa Graff, a regular guest on the show. There are many episodes you can watch on demand to learn more about the emergence of Maitreya, the World Teacher, and the Masters of Wisdom. Find more episodes on Facebook on the Share International Canada page, or on YouTube by doing a search for Message of Hope Weekly, or join us live on most second Saturdays of every month on this platform, where you can post your questions and we conclude the show with transmission meditation. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and share this video. This may be the message of hope you've been looking for.